Hey everyone, welcome to a special New Year's Eve edition of NoDQ&A video. I was done for 2023, but we are here one final time. A lot of news went down this weekend, so I figured why not do a Q&A? People have been asking me about what happened at AEW World's End and also the big news that went under the radar a little bit because it broke during the pay-per-view, and that is the departure of longtime executive head of production Kevin Dunn. So we are going to discuss Kevin Dunn tonight, AEW World's End. I have a lot of questions that people sent in, and you can also super chat questions. If you're watching live, super chats will take priority. I will get to those first. If you super chat, it's very much appreciated. And I do appreciate everyone that has supported No DQ, everyone that is watching this live stream, whether it's live, participating in the chat room, or on demand. I very much am thankful for your support, and I look forward to interacting with everyone in 2024 and beyond. So, on that note, let's get to the wrestling discussion. First up, TJS asked me this during the AEW World's End live stream, and he emailed me a question too for this Q&A, and it is the one that everyone wants to talk about. So we'll start off with this. Kevin Dunn leaving WWE. TJS said, what are your thoughts on Kevin Dunn retiring from WWE? I know there are a lot of people happy about it, but he is a professional, and I'm a little worried that production may suffer. Production will be fine, first off. I do not think Kevin Dunn is as bad as people have made him out to be. WWE production over the years has been fantastic for the most part. And Kevin Dunn was in charge for decades, going back to the 1980s. Now, did he perhaps make some questionable decisions? Yeah, maybe he was judging people by how they look, and I get it. It's television, and people tend to do that. Maybe it's a crappy thing to do as a human being. But from his perspective, he wants good-looking people on television. And some people were rubbed the wrong way by that. My biggest problem with Kevin Dunn, and not just Kevin Dunn, but WWE production, over the years, I really disliked the constant camera zooms, zooming in and out really fast and shaking the camera when there were punches being thrown and chair shots and all that. I was just not a fan. I think it's a cheap trick, and we sometimes see it in movies to try and create this feeling of chaos, like things are out of control. You start shaking the camera wildly and zooming in and out real fast. It can be effective if you do it every once in a while, but when it's done every show, it can get nauseating. Like, I feel like I can't even watch the TV screen at times because it's just too much, and the constant camera cuts. Now, that I think comes down to this idea that television viewers have a short attention span. They cannot look at one picture for too long. But if you're watching this live stream, you're just watching the one shot of me. So there you go. But I think from a perspective of a television producer, you want to keep the shots moving and keep the viewers at home engaged so they don't change the channel. That, I believe, is the whole thought process with Kevin Dunn. But I think WWE will be just fine. If you've noticed, WWE in recent months has changed a little bit as far as the TV production goes. We're not seeing as many camera cuts and zooming in and out and shaky camera work. I think that had to do with Kevin Dunn slowly moving away from WWE. I think that this was something that was bound to happen with the Endeavor merger. I feel like once Vince McMahon was gone, it was the beginning of the end for Kevin Dunn. Kevin Dunn, a Vince McMahon guy for decades, going back to the mid-1980s when WWE first went national. I do not think AEW will be picking up Kevin Dunn. Highly unlikely in all likelihood. Tony Khan has his team. And why would you want Kevin Dunn to come in and produce the television that a lot of WWE fans don't like? Never mind AEW fans. A lot of WWE fans despise Kevin Dunn. And I think some of it is personal. They just don't like the guy's attitude about how people look on television, think he's one to talk. WWE production is great. Like it takes more than one person. It's not just one person that's pulling all the strings, or in this case, pushing all of the buttons. They have a whole team of people, and I think they'll be just fine. Now, Caleb sent in a $5.31 super chat. Thank you for that, Caleb. I very much appreciate it. Caleb said, Triple H knows what he is doing. The product will be even better now, as the authority used to say, this is what's best for business. That is true. I think that Triple H will continue to have a good sense of what the fans want. And sometimes it's good to change things up. Nothing lasts forever. Kevin Dunn, he's up there. He's not a young man, and at some point you might want to consider bringing in some younger people that are also more in touch with modern television and what a modern audience wants. Kevin Dunn, for all the positives he's done, Kevin Dunn, he's been doing it for decades, and maybe he's had this concept in his mind of what works, and he's been using that same concept for 3 decades, and at some point he's going to get out of touch. I think the same thing happened with Vince McMahon. We all can debate and discuss Vince's impact on wrestling, and as great as he was, and he was a fantastic businessman, great television character, he did get out of touch. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. He had some bad ideas, and I feel like he lost focus of what his audience truly wanted. At the end of the day, he just went with his own gut, what he thought was best for business. And Triple H is showing that if you listen to your audience, you're going to have record business. Look at WWE's numbers. They're doing fantastic. So again, WWE is going to be fine without Kevin Dunn. And apparently Bruce Pritchard is tight with Triple H, and I don't necessarily think he's going anywhere. You never know, though. Anything can happen in WWE, as we've been saying since the 90s. You never know. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. And then I'm going to get to Caleb's other question since he super chatted. Psycho Jet Black said, how would you book Samoa Joe as world champion moving forward? And how long should he hold it until he drops it to Swerve Strickland? Joe has the opportunity to have the best run of his career right now. He's the world champion in AEW. Now, is he going to be a transitional champion? I hope not. I hope he gets to have a fairly decent run with the title. MJF was champion for over a year. I do not see Joe having that long of a run. Swerve Strickland seems to be the next in line to potentially win the title as a babyface. Maybe that happens at Revolution if Joe is in fact going to be a transitional champion, maybe Double or Nothing. But keep in mind, we got Will Ospreay coming in, and I suspect this is one of my predictions for 2024. I think that Will Ospreay is going to challenge the champion at Wembley Stadium. Now, is Samoa Joe the best option? Is Swerve Strickland the best option? That's hard to say. I mean, the landscape of AEW could change over the next 6 months. But I would like to see Joe have a pretty decent reign, at least 6 months. But if he loses it sooner, I'm not going to be surprised. I want to see Joe have a nice little run as a dominant world champion. And LaShawn Davis sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. LaShawn just wanted to say, I am glad Kevin Dunn is gone. WWE is even better. A lot of people are happy about this. And hey, if it creates positive buzz for WWE, then I guess they made the right call. When Vince left, there was like almost a 180 overnight. Like fans were very optimistic about the future of the brand, and it created a snowball effect, and WWE built up more and more momentum coming off of that announcement with Vince. So with Kevin Dunn being gone, I wonder if that's going to also cause lapsed fans to want to tune in again. Now that Kevin Dunn's gone, maybe somebody who hasn't watched wrestling or watched WWE in 10 years is going to all of a sudden be like, well, maybe I'm going to give it another shot. I think it's going to help WWE for sure. Now, Caleb Jacobs had sent in this question regarding CM Punk and the Royal Rumble and Cody Rhodes. He said, when CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble, how do you think Cody Rhodes will get his rematch against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40? I'm not convinced CM Punk is winning the Royal Rumble, first of all, but we got Elimination Chamber in Australia, and my thought process is the person who doesn't win the Royal Rumble wins Elimination Chamber and gets the title shot for the other championship at WrestleMania. Seems like an easy, no-brainer idea. Now, they could do a scenario where the champion defends his title in Elimination Chamber. I think Cody's winning the Rumble. I'm still convinced that Cody's going to win it, and CM Punk will either win Elimination Chamber or Seth Rollins will defend an Elimination Chamber and Punk will win the title, and then Rollins will get his rematch at WrestleMania. That's what I would expect at this point. But CM Punk could very well win, and in that case, I say Cody just wins Elimination Chamber. Like, Cody's got to win something significant. To be the main event of night 2, he's got to win big. You know, this is the main event. With all due respect to CM Punk and Seth Rollins, that match is the main event. Roman Reigns, night 2. So whoever's facing Roman, which I expect to be Cody, has to win big. And to me, that's the Royal Rumble. Elimination Chamber would be big, but the Rumble is the Rumble. All right, so Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Building Nexus. I appreciate it. Building Nexus says, do you think Jimmy Uso goes to Raw to feud with Jay? Not necessarily. See, I do think this match is happening at WrestleMania, and I think something is going to go down at the Royal Rumble. Maybe Jimmy goes after Jay, but I feel like Jimmy should do something to screw over Jay. Maybe at the Rumble, Jay eliminates Jimmy, and then Jimmy illegally eliminates Jay or something like that, and then Jay has to go after Jimmy. Like, if it's Jimmy coming after Jay, I feel like it's the wrong psychology. You have to have the heel trying to duck the babyface, and the babyface is coming after the heel. So I feel like at the Rumble, Jimmy's got to screw over Jay, so Jay goes over to SmackDown looking for revenge. But Could be a scenario where Jay just eliminates Jimmy and then Jimmy randomly shows up on a Raw and costs Jay a big match. Like that could happen too. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. I appreciate it. Psycho Jet Black says, with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega gone for AEW or from AEW for the time being, Tony Khan will be forced to push new people to the main event. Which stars should get pushed? Okay, first off, you best push the Devil's team. Adam Cole, The Kingdom, Wardlow. Like, if you don't put these guys in the top spot, then what are you even doing with these guys? Like, you spent all this time teasing the identities of these masked people, and you really got to push these guys strong. Swerve, like, he had so much momentum coming off of the matches with Hangman Adam Page. You have to strike while the iron is hot. You have to keep the momentum going with him. Powerhouse Hobbs, like, what are they doing with this guy? He needs to be pushed very strongly. He beat Chris Jericho, dominated Chris Jericho, but he still feels like he's just a random guy on the roster. And same thing with Takeshita. You had him beat Kenny Omega twice, and again, he just feels like another guy on the roster. And Ricky Starks, too, like, him and Big Bill are the tag team champions. Like, they need to be more involved in major storylines on television. So all those names I mentioned need to be pushed strongly on TV. Jonathan, 22, sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Jonathan. I appreciate it. Says, do you think the crowd is going to turn on Seth Rollins soon and he'll have to turn heel? I don't think people are going to boo Punk. He very well could. It would not shock me. I think the fans will really dictate how it goes. If Rollins still gets babyface reactions, they might just have it be 50-50, but would not surprise me if at some point Rollins goes back to being a heel. You really just have to go with what the crowd wants organically. Now, if this was the Vince era, Vince might be stubborn. Now, what about if CM Punk goes heel at some point? Like, we still can't rule that out, that one day the jackass CM Punk is going to reemerge, and it'll make for some entertaining television. But then if he does that, he'll get cheered even more. If he's like a jerk, the old CM Punk, I think fans will love him even more. That's what they like about CM Punk, that he is kind of an a-hole. But yeah, I think at Chicago, they're definitely going to turn against Rollins, and they very well could at WrestleMania. Would not surprise me if it's 75 for Punk, 25 for Rollins. Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, 4-way at the Rumble for Roman Reigns' title. I don't think they're doing that. I would be really surprised. I think it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton one-on-one. You always could add LA Knight and AJ to the mix and make it a 4-way, but I think a one-on-one match is stronger. I'm still hoping, you're talking about 4-way matches. I'm still hoping that we get the battle of the bloodline. Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa versus Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. I'd love to see that at Elimination Chamber for the championship. Don't know if we're going to get it or not, but I think that would be a cool match to do with all the bloodline members going at it like they've totally fallen apart leading up to WrestleMania. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $5 super chat. Says, how would you book Sting's retirement match? And thank you for the super chat, Dwayne. I appreciate it. We got Sting's retirement match coming up at Revolution. I think he should put over Darby Allin. I definitely feel like Sting should put somebody over on the way out. And they've never done Sting versus Darby one-on-one. And I get it, Sting, they're trying to whatnot. I would like to over clean, and Sting hugs him at the end. Kind of like Ric Flair versus Sting from the last Nitro. I would pattern it after that, where, no crazy gimmicks, no crazy bumps, just two guys going out there and having a match, straight up wrestling match, and Darby Allin wins. And Sting raises his hand, and Sting goes off into the sunset. That's what I would do. I would have Darby Allin beat Sting at Revolution one-on-one. Now, Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. This is off topic because I got the Zelda shirt. He says, besides CDI games, what is the worst Zelda game? There are no bad Zelda games. I'll just throw that out there right now. I have not played every single one, but if I had to pick one, it's tough to say. Like, I didn't really like... I liked the games and the concept of the games, but the Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, like, those are good games. I hate the controls on that gamepad. Like, they were really difficult to use, but I did enjoy both of those games. They're not bad games by any stretch. Like, they're still fun games. And, the repetitiveness, especially of Phantom Hourglass, coming back to that same tower over and over again, got a little old. We got a $5 super chat here from Stomach Bug. Thank you for the super chat, Stomach Bug. I appreciate it. Stomach Bug says, can Wardlow get all of his credibility back if Tony Khan brings in Goldberg for one more match? I don't think Goldberg should wrestle again. I think that he had his run. He had his comeback. He could show up in AEW for a one-off, but his last match was okay with Roman Reigns. But Goldberg matches were mostly lackluster matches. Spear, F5, jackhammer, almost crippling The Undertaker. I don't want to see Goldberg again. I think they had their shot at Wembley Stadium. Might have been a cool moment, but I think the time has come and gone for Goldberg. I really don't think we should see Goldberg in any capacity, whether it's AEW or WWE at this point. And Tito, funny you mentioned that. We've been playing the Oracle games, and they are good games, but yeah, they're probably the weakest of the bunch, the handheld games. But I do enjoy them. They still have their redeeming qualities. And yeah, Goldberg, I feel like he would not lose. He would have to insist on going over because he's Goldberg and he lost to Roman Reigns. And I feel like my gut is that Goldberg wants to come back and get to kick somebody's ass and be victorious one more time. I think that's what he wants. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, should WWE bring in Matt Riddle? Only if Riddle stays out of trouble. And I would give it at least 6 months to a year. If Riddle lights the indie world on fire and is doing great stuff in MLW and not getting into trouble, not being in the negative headlines, then yeah, I think everybody deserves a second chance, and that includes Riddle. If Riddle matures, gets his head straight, and does good business, then yeah, I would say give him a chance, but not right now. He has to prove himself. He has to prove that he can stay out of trouble, and at that point, give him 6 months to a year. Maybe you consider using him. And right now, there's so many people on the market, Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali. I think Riddle's best course of action is to just build up his reputation on the indies and MLW and wait for the right time. Wait for there to be an opportunity where he can come in and be a significant player. Like right now, he would just get lost in the shuffle in AEW, I think. He'd be fresh for a couple weeks and then he'd be right there in the pack and not really standing out, just because that's how things are in AEW. Their roster is bloated, and Tony Khan can only focus on so many people at one time. So thank you guys for the super chats. And Mr. Tito with a $2 super chat, thank you for that, says, advice for Nick Hossman on his aggressive reports. I'm not really going to dig into that too much. I will say this. I think that most wrestling reporters and bloggers spend too much time arguing with people on social media. I used to be guilty of that. Years ago, I would get into social media arguments with people. I'd start quote retweeting them and going back and forth. It's a waste of time. A lot of people are just trolling, for one thing. That's the main problem. And then the other problem is somebody has their opinion and they're sticking to it. And when you're typing behind a computer, you could say whatever you want without any repercussions. And I think there's too many people that get obsessed with Twitter. And there's a lot of wrestling reporters. I could name at least half a dozen that I think spend way too much time arguing with people on Twitter. And it kind of makes them unlikable. They feel they're right and everybody's wrong. And to be fair, a lot of these reporters are being trolled, but they take the bait. And my advice to them, don't take the bait. And Mr. Tito says he means Jericho and Punk reporting. It's also called stirring the pot. Like, I don't know if that's what he's doing or not, but, you know, you put stuff out there on a public forum. If you got a problem with somebody, take it up in private. You know, don't go on Twitter and try to publicly call them out. You know, settle it behind closed doors. Do your job and stay out of trouble. That's all I have to say on that. I really don't want to get too much into all that stuff. You know, the stuff with Chris Jericho, who knows if it's true or not. We'll see what happens if anything comes out of this, if anybody comes forward, if Tony Khan takes any action, or if it just goes away and people forget about it. I mean, it's happened before. Don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that people on Twitter are very quick to try and cancel somebody too. So all the more reason not to get in Twitter arguments, because people will come after you, try to find ways to cancel you, and you're best off just keeping a low profile. And that's what I've been doing. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. Says, what are the greatest WCW pay-per-views and episodes? Great question. I would say Spring Stampede 1994 is a great show. I love that tag team match with Cactus Jack and the Nasty Boys. That's an awesome match. That was in Chicago too. You had Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat. And some of the pay-per-views from like 96, 97, Great American Bash, Bash at the Beach. I mean, obviously Bash at the Beach 96 was an epic show. Halloween Havoc 97 was pretty cool. You had that Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero match. I actually did a video, if you want to check it out, on the YouTube channel. Search Aaron Rift greatest WCW pay-per-views. You should be able to find it. I reviewed every single WCW pay-per-view. So I can tell you that for the most part, those 96 and 97 pay-per-views were the best ones. And by 98, they started to go downhill. And there were a couple of ones in the early 90s that were pretty good with the War Games matches. Those are worth checking out as well. Chat room. Tell me your favorite WCW pay-per-view, because my memory does get a little bit foggy. But if you guys throw out some pay-per-views, I'll see if I can jog my memory. Tell me a match, and I'll tell you if I thought if that was a good pay-per-view or not. Johnny sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Johnny. Says, best storyline this year, Bloodline, The Devil, etc. Sami Zayn. The Sami Zayn leaving the Bloodline, in my opinion, was the best storyline of the year. That was my favorite. Dominic and Rey Mysterio, that is up there. You know, Rey finally punching his son. You know, we were all waiting for that moment. That was great. The Usos splitting away from Roman Reigns after WrestleMania. That was great too. All those I just mentioned were my favorite ones. Not the Devil. Devil was not my favorite storyline this year. Shout out to Jeff Meacham at the Jeff Meacham Network. He said, just saying hello and sending love. See you tonight. Jeff Meacham is doing a special live stream tonight to ring in 2024. So if you're watching this live, tune in to Jeff's channel at 11 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be on there at the start of it. So if you tune in right at 11, you'll get Jeff's coming attractions, but then I'll be on and we'll maybe talk about 2023 and what we're hoping for in 2024. So tune into that over on the Jeff Meacham Network, 11 o'clock Eastern, and ring in the new year with good old JM, Jeff Meacham, and the Jeff Meacham Network. Shout out to Richie the Wolf for sending in a $10 super chat. Thank you, Richie. I appreciate it very much. Richie says, was the main event Mafia versus Frontline storyline in TNA supposed to be the Millionaires Club versus the New Blood, how it was supposed to be, since the younger guys in WCW were supposed to be the good guys? Yeah, it basically was a recreation of that. And much like the New Blood storyline, it never really was executed properly. The main event Mafia was a cool idea, like having all these veteran main eventers trying to hold on to their spot. But in the end, the Frontline, first of all, that was a terrible name. The Frontline is a brand of medicine for cats and dogs to control fleas and kill them. That's Frontline. I know the Frontline is like, you know, a military term, but I think that it should have led to AJ Styles and Samoa Joe really being top-level superstars, and that did not happen. Samoa Joe got kidnapped by ninjas or some crazy storyline that they did, and then AJ Styles became Ric Flair 2.0, coming out there with the ropes. That was awful. Like, they really dropped the ball with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. Like, they should have been taken to the next level from the main event Mafia storyline. So that was the big problem with that. I'm seeing some of these WCW pay-per-views. Starrcade 1988, I don't remember. I feel like Halloween Havoc 89 might have been a pretty good show, if I'm not mistaken. And Great American Bash from that year I liked. Hog Wild 96. I liked the concept, but the bikers were not that into the matches, and I think that hurt the show. But I did like the vibe, just doing something different. And same thing with World War III. Like, the Battle Royal was a nice little change of pace. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, worst match, Chamber of Horrors or Kennel from Hell? I would say Kennel from Hell was probably worse. At least Chamber of Horrors, I felt like it had some comedy, unintentional comedy, but just watching Abdullah the Butcher getting electrocuted in that chair, like, that was entertaining. The dog poop and all that stuff with the Kennel from Hell, I wasn't even entertained by that match. I liked the storyline with Big Boss Man feeding Al Snow's dog to him, Pepper, but the match itself was awful. Big Boss Man had some real stinkers in 99. The Hell in a Cell match, Kennel from Hell, and the Big Show World Title match at Armageddon. Those matches were just awful. Like, not even entertaining, just bad. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat, and you guys can click on Jeff's name to go to his channel if you want to check out his stream tonight at 11, and subscribe if you haven't already. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat, says, what will happen to Damian Priest and Money in the Bank in 2024? Great question. I think he has to cash in by WrestleMania. If you hold it past WrestleMania, it makes you look like a complete idiot. Maybe he cashes in after CM Punk wins the world title from Seth Rollins, if that is in fact what WWE is planning. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Or even if Seth Rollins beats CM Punk. I'd have Priest cash it in at WrestleMania. If he doesn't, he looks like a fool for not cashing in the main event of WrestleMania. So it might happen sooner, but I feel like WrestleMania is going to be the place. And some are saying, well, what if he holds it till the next Money in the Bank? Like, why? Why would you not cash it in at WrestleMania? Hell, cash it in as a normal match just so you can get the main event spot at WrestleMania. There's value in that. So I feel like Priest has to cash in by WrestleMania, if not sooner. Maybe he cashes in at Elimination Chamber. You know, that seems to be a good spot to do it. We've seen it in the past. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. And this is off topic here, but I'll answer it real quick. What do you feed your cats so they stay healthy? I used Science Diet dry food, and I was feeding that to them for years. Chicken flavor. One of my cats made it to 16. My other one is almost 17. And it seemed to work well for them. That was what my vet recommended. They said use Science Diet. It's a good brand. So it is more expensive than what you might buy at a Target or a grocery store, but I think it's worth it for the sake of your pet's health. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black, and we'll get back to some wrestling questions now. How about that? TJS said, make one bold prediction for 2024. One bold prediction. Okay. I will say, and I have my doubts that this is going to happen. I really do think it's I believe it when I'll see it scenario. But I am going to say AJ Lee returns to WWE. She is retired. She seems to be happy being out of wrestling. But Trish Stratus came back and had a pretty solid run. If you're AJ Lee, you see Trish Stratus going out there, having a good run, having fun. Why not? Her husband's back in WWE. I think this would be a great opportunity for an AJ Lee comeback. She'd get a huge pop at the Royal Rumble. I don't think it's going to happen right away, but I'd love to see it. I will be surprised if she shows up at the Royal Rumble. I'm not getting my hopes up on it, but I will say she'll be back at some point. I don't know when, but that's my bold prediction. AJ Lee will be back in WWE. Now, Mike B sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Mike B. I appreciate it very much. Mike B says, Happy New Year to you and Caitlin. Besides Andrade, who do you think will go from AEW to WWE in 2020? Tough one to answer. I did mention Andrade the other week when we were talking about wrestlers that might jump ship in 2024. I don't know everyone's contractual status. A lot of guys are under contract for several more years, but you have to think the two guys, and it depends on when their contracts are up, but Malachi Black, his wife's in WWE, Zelina Vega. We know she just signed a multi-year extension. That is public information now. Malachi Black, he would have never been fired if it was Triple H's call. That was a Vince call. Malachi Black will be back. It's just a matter of when. And the other guy is Miro. Miro, I think, will go back to WWE when his contract is up, whenever that is. But I think, from what I recall, he has several years left. He had a pretty long contract. I don't know how accurate that report is, but he might be under contract for a while. Buddy Matthews is another guy I could definitely see going back to WWE. He's with Rhea Ripley. And one guy who hasn't been in WWE yet, except for being an extra, Ricky Starks, I think will end up in WWE. Maybe Brody King too. You know, he's a big dude. He might go to WWE. He would be a good fit. You know, he could mix it up with guys like Ivar and Bronson Reed. You know, he's a meaty guy. I think Brody King will end up in WWE at some point as well. Saraya, maybe. I don't know about her. Maybe. I mean, everybody comes back, right? So could happen at some point. Never say never, right? All right. Now, Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. Says, my bold prediction, Ryback will not return to WWE. I don't think he will. We always say never, but Ryback was not the star that the Ultimate Warrior was. At least the Warrior was a legitimate money draw. Ryback was not really. Like, he came, he went, business went on as usual. Ryback was not a difference maker. Warrior at least sold some merchandise. Maybe Ryback did a little bit, but Warrior, when he came back in 96, there was a little bit of a period of buzz for him coming back. But Ryback would not generate that kind of buzz. So maybe one day, but I think it's unlikely. He seems to be among the bigger long shots as far as potential WWE returns. Hep Cano has a $5 super chat with a little history lesson for everybody coming up here. He says, this Thursday in history is the 25-year anniversary of the finger poke of doom and WCW fans switching to Raw to watch Mick Foley in 1999. I mentioned this on Twitter that WWE actually spoiled that. Everybody remembers Tony Schiavone spoiling the match outcome with Mick Foley winning the title on Nitro, but WWE posted it on their front page of WWF.com with no spoiler warning. They just threw it out there. Mick Foley won the WWE title in Worcester, Massachusetts, and tune in this Monday night to see this historic title change. Something like that. But yeah, they blatantly spoiled that. That was a historic day in wrestling. That, you know, there were points in the Monday Night War where you could say it was a turning point, but that might have been the biggest turning point that night. Finger poke of doom, even though I've said this before, that wasn't really what caused the downfall of WCW. WCW business stayed hot for a couple months after that. Really, that Ric Flair Hulk Hogan feud was very bad for WCW business after Super Brawl. Like, once they did the double turn, it really went downhill. But the finger poke of doom wasn't bad for business. It was just, some fans saw it as a turning point. You know, WCW trying to screw over WWE, and it backfired on them. and they never recovered from it. So people kind of see it as like where WCW fell off the mountaintop and was never able to get back to that height again. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Dwayne. I appreciate it. Says, is this Roman's final title reign? It could be. I mean, after this, what else is there left for him to do? He'll never be able to replicate this. He's not going to be champion for another 3 years. Shawn Michaels, remember, he came back in 2002, had that brief title run, and then for the remaining 8 years of his career was never champion again. This very well could be it for Roman Reigns as champion. I mean, who knows if he's even going to be a full-time performer again. But he's not going to need the title. He made his impact as champion. There's really no need to put another title on him again. So, yeah, I think there is a decent chance it will be his last run as champion. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Finn sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Finn. I appreciate it. Hey, Aaron, do you think CM Punk's return killed LA Knight's hype? I think losing to Roman Reigns killed LA Knight's hype, although LA Knight was never going to beat Roman Reigns. But certainly Randy Orton being back now, CM Punk being back now, all the hype is surrounded around them. LA Knight is still very over, though. We'll see what happens over the next several weeks. We got that triple threat match coming up on SmackDown, and we have the Royal Rumble. We'll see if the fans still react to LA Knight the way they were a couple months ago. It's going to be interesting to see if he can stay hot. But hey, I want to see an LA Knight and CM Punk promo battle, and it'll be interesting to see if LA Knight and CM Punk can tear the house down, and if LA Knight can hang with CM Punk. Because CM Punk could hang with The Rock. He can hang with anybody. But can LA Knight hang with CM Punk? That's the question. And if he can, then everybody's going to be back on that gravy train, so to speak. So thank you for that super chat again. We got some more questions here. Colin Andrew said, if you had to book the AEW Devil Angle, what would you have done differently? And he says, cheers to 2024, my brother. Much love to you, Colin. Hope to see you soon. We got a wedding coming up. I'm excited for that. That's a great question. I always said that Adam Cole was the most logical person to be in the role. It's not so much who it was, but how you follow it up. Now you have to, as I mentioned earlier, really push these guys and make them top-level superstars. Otherwise, it's going to be a bust. Retribution maybe could have been something, but there was no follow-through. They just fizzled out. Like they had no momentum after Mustafa Ali took control of the group. And yeah, they just fell into obscurity. We'll see if that happens with Adam Cole and company. Hopefully they can be top-level guys and be elevated to the next level. That's the key here. That will determine if this angle was successful or not. It's the follow-up that really counts. So I'm not sure to answer your question, I don't necessarily think I would do it any differently. I would just, if I was in control, I'd be pushing these guys to the moon. Samoa Joe's the champion, but other than him, these guys have to be the dominant force. They got to be Judgment Day. They got to be the Bloodline. They got to be top tier guys. They cannot be Nexus or the Core, or they're doomed. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. I appreciate it. Says, should Jack Perry rejoin with Christian Cage? I think Jack Perry should probably go back to being Jungle Boy at this point. The fans would at least pop for the music. It's tough to say what you do with Jack Perry at this point, but I would not be shocked if he goes back to being Jungle Boy and tries to be a good guy again and get cheered. It might not work, though. I mean, the fans might hate Jack Perry. Maybe not. Maybe some AEW fans like Jack Perry now for getting CM Punk out of the company. It's hard to say how fans will react to Jack Perry if and when he returns to AEW. But hey, reunite him with Kill Switch, build Christian's faction a little bit. You don't want to build him up too big, though, because like I said, with Adam Cole's group, they have to be the most dominant faction. And if Christian gets too big with his group, they're going to overshadow Adam Cole's group. So you got to be really careful here. All the more reason why they got to try to have one dominant group for Dynamite and one dominant group for Collision, and try not to have them interact too much. That might be a good idea. This Guy Experience sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, what's the no DQ schedule for 2024 and AEW's next big move? Well, no DQ schedule is, we got Raw Day 1 coming up, Dynamite post World's End. We got the SmackDown New Year's Revolution, and No DQ Review will be back. Right now, we're planning for next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So stay tuned for that. And AEW's next big move, well, Will Ospreay is coming. So, you gotta build him and try to make something out of him. And Sting's retirement, Revolution, they got a couple months to build that up. And their next big move also is, like I said, making this Adam Cole faction the real deal, and trying to make them a real force to be reckoned with in AEW. So thank you for that. And then Walter Cruz sent in this question. He said, in your opinion, who will have the biggest impact on the wrestling business in 2024? I would say, if he doesn't screw up, CM Punk. CM Punk has already been making a difference when it comes to live events, attendance, merchandise. If CM Punk stays out of trouble, he's the needle mover right now. CM Punk has already made a difference, and he could have a historic run if he keeps his head straight and doesn't screw it up. Another person, possibly, I mentioned him, is Will Ospreay. Major signing from AEW. A lot of buzz about Will Ospreay and his work in Japan. Can he be a top-level AEW star? Can he bring back fans that may have lost interest in AEW? That's a big question mark. But right now, I say the top guy is going to be CM Punk. And Cody Rhodes, finishing the story and showing WWE that he can be the guy to carry the company as world champion. And I don't even think that's a bold prediction. Cody Rhodes being WWE champion, I think is on the horizon. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho. I appreciate it very much. Psycho Jet Black says, here's an idea. What if they use Adam Cole's group to help build up Wardlow and have them help Wardlow beat Joe for the title and become a dominant champion? The only problem with that right now is that Joe has gone back to being a heel. He was always really a heel, but he was being friendly with MJF and then turned against him. Wardlow is a heel right now. Adam Cole, they are a despised heel group. They could do heel versus heel, but I think it's more likely that Wardlow is just going to be like a Diesel type character where Adam Cole is going to be the trash talker and then Wardlow's going to be the muscle. I feel like it's more likely that somebody like Swerve or Will Ospreay will end up beating Joe for the championship. But yeah, I think Wardlow will be like a Diesel type of character, being the muscle for Adam Cole and the Kingdom. Now, Christopher Brown sent in a comment here about this former WWE champion that's going to be showing up on Raw, who is reportedly not under contract at the moment. Not looking to be Sasha Banks, unlikely to be Batista, could be Andrade. And Christopher wanted to know, who can it possibly be that the fans won't immediately shit all over it? And especially for the casual wrestling crowd, they so desperately want to please. Triple H did tweet and acknowledge the rumor, but other than that, WWE has not hyped it up on TV at all. So it's not really WWE's fault if fans are disappointed. This was a rumor, circulating around the internet, not started by WWE. But the fact that Triple H acknowledged it makes me think it's somebody significant. Could be somebody like a Ken Shamrock, could be Andrade. Keep in mind, former WWE champion doesn't necessarily mean the WWE champion, the WWE World Champion. A WWE champion could be a former Intercontinental champion or a former United States champion. So it literally could be anybody. But I think it's going to be good. I think, they're going to try to start off the year on a high note. And I think we're in for a good treat this coming Monday night on Raw. Now, we got another super chat here from Finn. Thank you for that, Finn. I appreciate it. Sent in $5. Says, don't you think CM Punk has been the superstar of the past decade due to all the drama and headlines he's made? If that's the only criteria, if the only criteria is being in the headlines, CM Punk would be the superstar of the decade. Certainly the last couple of years, 2001, coming back to wrestling, 2002, brawl out, getting in a fight with the Elite, 2003, getting fired from AEW and returning to WWE. He's on a roll for this decade so far. If he keeps it up, he may be the superstar of the decade. And like I said, if this run is a massive success and he doesn't get in trouble and ends his career on a high note, yeah, he very well could be superstar of the decade, and not just for creating headlines, negative headlines, but also being a great superstar and creating positive headlines. Jury is out. We will see. Time will tell if CM Punk can reach that level and truly go down as one of the all-time greats and not be a guy who could have been one of the greatest, but got himself in trouble one too many times. Dave Scheffler sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Dave. Says, Aaron, are you saying Swerve is going to have a face turn because he's a pretty strong heel right now? They really tried it at World's End to build heat and get him booed, but they're fighting the fans. And this is what happened with MJF, and people were like, they should have kept MJF a heel. Fans stopped booing him. He could go out there and insult them about anything, and they were cheering him. They're cheering for Swerve. Whose house? Swerve's house. They love the guy. He could drop a cinder block on somebody's mother, and the fans would cheer for the guy. They love Swerve. He's not going to be a heel long term. I don't think so. He's going to be a face. It's just a matter of time. Like they can push him as a heel for now. Maybe have him fight Keith Lee when Keith Lee's ready. But Swerve's going to be a babyface. I mean, they just love the guy. He's a tremendous athlete. And that story of him trying to be the first African-American world champion. I mean, that's a babyface storyline if there ever was one. He's going to be a face. That's a bold prediction. Maybe not a bold prediction, but that's a prediction for me. He's going to be a top face in AEW at some point. So thank you for that super chat. And Psycho Jet Black sent in a $4 super chat. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. I appreciate it. And thank you all for the super chats. Very generous with the super chats tonight. Much appreciated. We're ending the year on a high note with this Q&A, and I thank you guys for all your support. And let's keep going here. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, "What is going on with Bobby Lashley's group?" Well, I think the idea was they were supposed to be heels. Problem is, they got cheered. The crowd loves Bobby Lashley. They love the Street Profits, even though the music changed. And it just isn't working as a heel group. But the problem is, Triple H may have had ideas, and I think this is why Vince did what he did. You know, people got mad that Vince would not listen to the audience, but keep in mind, they're planning things out, and they're trying to, I know people don't believe this a lot with Vince, but he probably tried to plan things out in advance. People laugh, but remember Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage? That storyline played out over a year. They planted the seeds for that a year in advance. And even during the Attitude Era, you know, setting up Undertaker and Kane like 7 months before WrestleMania. They did long-term planning. Remember when Brock Lesnar and Goldberg ran into each other at Survivor Series in 2003? Way before WrestleMania. That was several months in advance. So what my point is here is the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley. Triple H may have had an idea. Let's make these guys massive heels. But then the crowd cheered him. And now Triple H is, well, we already have all these other storylines going on. And we were planning on the Street Profits and Lashley being heels. So now what do? We have to figure something out here. And that takes time to change up the storylines and change the characters and balance the roster so you have an even number of heels and faces. So yeah, that's the problem right now. I think Lashley's group is kind of stuck because they were designed to be heels, and they're basically baby faces now. The crowd made them baby faces. So thank you for that question, that super chat. I do appreciate that. Did I screw up the date? I might have said it. 2001, 2002, 2003. Okay, I screwed something up. I'm not even sure what it was. But thank you. Thank you for pointing out my screw-ups, guys. We're live, pal. Calvin Bowman sent in a question, says, what was your favorite Royal Rumble? And he picked 2000 with The Rock winning the Rumble, although I think Big Show was declared the winner. It was kind of silly. Triple H and Cactus Jack street fight. They had a fantastic match. That was one of the best Royal Rumbles. Hardy Boys versus the Dudleys, the debut of Taz. I loved that Royal Rumble, but my all-time favorite is 1992. And I could really use a fresh water right now. I'm all out. This stream is going long here. I'm completely out of water. 1992, thank you. Talk about fast service right there. The 1992 Royal Rumble with Ric Flair going the hour is my all-time favorite Royal Rumble. Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan on commentary for that. Absolute gold. I love that Rumble. Not just, this is Ice Mountain Water, TJS, since you had to know. The star power, and not just people that were already established stars, but future stars in that match. You had the established names like Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Sid Vicious, or Sid Justice. And then you had Undertaker. You had Shawn Michaels. in that Royal Rumble when he had just turned heel. It was so much fun. Roddy Piper in that Rumble. Like, that was one of the most star-studded Royal Rumbles of all time. I just love that Rumble. So much fun. I go back and watch that all the time. Like, that is legitimately like my all-time favorite Royal Rumble, period. But 2000's up there, definitely. All right, we got a few more super chats, so let's get to those. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, are we getting Adam Cole's group versus Bullet Club Gold? You could turn Bullet Club Gold baby faces. Actually, might not be the worst idea at this point because, like I said, you got to push Adam Cole's group as the top heels, and now Bullet Club Gold goes down a peg as heels. Plus, you have Christian in his group, so might not be the worst idea to turn Jay White and his crew babyface. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I think they should go with it. You know, it would not shock me either. There's another semi-bold prediction. I don't know what is going through Tony Khan's noggin, but I could definitely see that as a possibility. I actually think it's a great idea. Turn him babyface. Johnny sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Johnny. Says, are you hyped for Toni Storm versus Wendy Richter? I had heard about that little call out from Toni Storm. It would be entertaining to see Wendy Richter show up at an AEW show just for fun. I mean, nobody but the most diehard fans are going to know who she is. But hey, you used the Von Erich family, and you've brought in names from the 80s that a lot of modern fans aren't going to know, but your most hardcore fans will know who they are. So, yeah, might be a little entertaining storyline to do just for fun. Why not? I'll tell you who I'd really like to see, whether it's WWE or AEW. I'd like to see Cyndi Lauper come back to wrestling just for a little segment. That would be fun. Like, she deserves her flowers because I don't know if wrestling would have gotten to where it got without Cyndi Lauper. I mean, she is way overdue for some serious recognition. Absolutely. Marshall, I did not get a super chat from you. I think you have to just click on the $sign, and if you have a payment method, you can send a super chat. Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Walter. Maybe somebody in the chat room can help Marshall out on that. I'm not sure off the top of my head how you actually do the super chats, but he might be able to help you on that one. He says, I know they have Moxley and Danielson, but Swerve is legit the best AEW signing of all the former WWE people. They struck gold. Do you agree or disagree? I think he's been the best utilized for sure. And, you know, he's very talented. He's got a presence to him. He's got that charisma. Yeah, I think Triple H would not have fired the guy. He's another one, along with Malachi Black and Miro and Andrade. Swerve is a guy that Triple H would have never fired. Hit Row might have actually been something if Swerve was still around. Like, it was clear when Hit Row came back, Swerve was the star of that group. And without him, Hit Row really went nowhere. But I agree. 100%. He's the best signing of anybody that was released. I still say Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson were the best overall signings. But as far as people that were cut by WWE and went to AEW, Swerve's been the best. 100% agree on that. Thank you for that. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Psycho. Says, imagine Prince Nana and Embassy turning face. Well, Prince Nana does that dance that everybody likes. And no, I will not do that for any super chat. So don't even try. Don't even suggest the idea. Ain't gonna happen. I don't even know how it goes, to be totally honest with you guys. Like, you might think I'm lying, but I legit don't know how it goes. And plus, I have the worst coordination in the world, so ain't gonna happen. I might be able to talk my wife into it on the Jeff Meacham Network at 11 o'clock on the open mic night celebration for 2023 going into 2024. So if you guys want to try, then go for it. I'll tell Caitlin how the dance goes. I'll show her the clip. Maybe she'll do it. I mean, she does swing dancing, so she has much better rhythm than I do, and it would be entertaining. But you guys will have to try to talk her into it if you go on the Jeff Meacham Network at 11 o'clock. All right, so we do have one more question here I wanted to get to. But before that, Mr. Anderson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate it. Says, who had the better year, WWE or AEW or TNA Impact? I mean, come on now. Is this a real question? I appreciate it, Mr. Anderson, but I mean, WWE financially had a fantastic year. And I don't even know if AEW was profitable in 2023. If anything, 2023 might have been AEW's worst year to date. I feel like they've cooled off. Other than Wembley Stadium, which was a massive success, they've struggled. Live attendance is down, and we've had all these reports of backstage issues. Hasn't been a great year for AEW, and their television viewership, Dynamite's been down, although it's been steady. Collision's been down. Rampage has been down year to year. So, yeah, WWE easily had the best year. TNA, I mean, they're where they're at. They are a very distant third, if not fourth. And Marshall said he can't get his super chat to go through. He wants to know if Jericho's allegations will lead to him being fired, or do you think he'll survive? It's going to take a lot. Like, there's going to need to be a lot of heat on Jericho, and I'm talking about serious allegations that are publicly made by somebody for Tony Khan to even consider firing him. It's going to take a lot for him to cut ties. Could he suspend Chris Jericho pending an investigation? That could happen. I mean, I would not rule that out, but to outright fire him, it would have to be really, really significant heat and a lot of allegations being made towards him for Tony Khan to do that, in my opinion. Finn sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Finn. I appreciate it. Says, if you had to put money on it, do you think Jon Moxley will return to WWE and have a Shield reunion? I've always said it. Everybody goes back to WWE. Jon Moxley is another guy that has been very negative about WWE. I think he's at the bottom of the list of most likely people to return, but I would not rule him out showing up again one day. Might not be until it's Hall of Fame induction time, and you know he'll go in. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. As long as AEW is on national television, I think he'll be there. And even still, like if AEW lost their TV deal and ended up in a similar spot as TNA, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it did, Moxley comes off to me like the type of guy that's going to continue to work on the indies and have fun. He cares more about having fun, doing his death matches and just beating the crap out of people, using profanity. That's what he loves. I think he would be fine just doing the indies. I only see him going back to WWE for the money. Maybe one day he'll feel like, well, I would like to go back and have one last run, but he doesn't come off to me like that person. So I think it's unlikely he comes back in any significant role, But one day he's going to go into the Hall of Fame. So we will see him again at some point, and we'll probably get that Shield reunion. They'll do Table for Three or whatever the show is at that time, little reunion show with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. One day it'll happen. The three of them will be on a WWE show. I don't even think that's a bold prediction. I do think that that will happen one day, not in the near future. Got a $2 super chat here, a little bit more realistic. Who had the better year, NXT or Ring of Honor? Although I still think this is a fairly easy question to answer. NXT. Ring of Honor is alive artificially because Tony Khan is allowing it to survive. But it's basically just AEW with a different name. It's AEW's fourth show. You got Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, and then Ring of Honor. So it's like the D show of AEW. You can call it Ring of Honor, but it's the fourth AEW show. That's what it is. NXT, on the other hand, has bounced back. They got their numbers up, and they got a new TV deal with CW. That's pretty significant. ROH doesn't have that TV deal, and Tony Khan reportedly turned down a TV deal opportunity for Ring of Honor, if you want to believe that. So yeah, definitely NXT. Ring of Honor shouldn't even really be a thing at this point as far as I'm concerned. But thank you for that super chat. I do appreciate it. Now, Ian sent in a question, said, longtime fan here. What are the chances that CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble and goes after Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? Look, anything's possible. But Cody has been talking about finishing the story. Roman Reigns is really the only person that makes sense with. Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. Yeah, they do have their history, but finishing the story means beating Roman Reigns as far as I'm concerned. And they've already planted the seeds for CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. That's the match I think we all want to see. That's what they've been teasing. Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. Again, if CM Punk stays out of trouble, that match will happen one day. I think that's pretty much a guarantee. But for WrestleMania, Cody versus Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins versus CM Punk, that's what I think is going to happen at WrestleMania. Unlikely it's CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. Now, TJS sent in another question here. He said, you've been running a wrestling news site as long as I've been alive. Sometimes news is slow and people can be hurtful. What gets you through your worst days? Do you have a favorite and least favorite part of the job? Well, the worst days, I mean, just finding other things to do. Sometimes you have to step away from wrestling a little bit. You can get burned out on it, and I certainly have at times. Best and worst part of the job, I mean, to me, they're one and the same, and that's the schedule. The schedule is great because I basically have the freedom to do what I want whenever. Like, I don't work for anybody but myself, and I don't have to go to a 9-to-5 job, which is great. You know, it's a blessing for sure. But the least favorite part of it is when I am doing something outside of work and there's work. It's happened to me many times. I was on a trip to Yosemite, California, when I went on the computer and I saw a MySpace message, Chris Benoit dead. So yeah, that kind of threw a big monkey wrench in my little vacation plans. And one time, I've told this story before, I was buying a car. I was at a dealership and I was in the office ready to sign paperwork. I get a text message. Roman Reigns has been suspended from WWE. I had to step out of the room. So that's the worst part of the job. It's good and bad, having your own schedule and having freedom to do your own thing. But at the same time, the news dictates when you're busy. So if there's news, if something's happening, gotta work. That's how it goes. So yeah, it can have its pros and cons for sure. Mr. Anderson. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is job finding out while you're with family for Christmas that Brody Lee passed away. Like that's the worst, you know. Just terrible to hear that news, and you know, puts a downer on everything. You know, stuff like that is the hardest part. Mr. Anderson sent in a $5 super chat. I guess we had a little bit of glitching again. Mr. Anderson sent in a $5 super chat, and my apologies for the Wi-Fi issue. Says, do you see WWE keeping Roman Reigns as the WWE undisputed champion throughout 2024 until WrestleMania 41? I sincerely hope not. I am not going to make that bold prediction. I think he will lose at WrestleMania 40. Highly unlikely. No. It's time. It's time to get that title off of him. I know they're going to be tempted. Hulk Hogan, his run was just over 4 years. So if Roman Reigns can hold on to that title until I think October, that'll be just over 4 years, he'll break Hulk Hogan's record. They might be tempted. I don't think they're going to do it though. Cody Rhodes needs to finish the story at WrestleMania. So I do not see that happening. I sincerely hope that doesn't happen. Now, TJS had another question here. He said, overall, how would you rate D-Generation X as a faction? Thumbs up, thumbs middle, or thumbs down? Keep in mind that 2009 DX counts. I cannot give thumbs up due to the bad comedy like Small Claims Court and all other awful stories. Well, I don't even remember those segments. I remember the stuff with Hornswoggle, and that was pretty lame. But DX is still DX. I was at SummerSlam in 2009. They came out there with the Army tank, and I was having fun. I was like a kid again, like a teenager when they came out there. So DX is DX. Massive thumbs up for DX. One of the best factions of all time. Arguably the best, some might say. First incarnation was the best. And then with X-Pac, that was a close second. Then the 2006 reunion. And then finally, the 2009 one was the weakest. But the first two incarnations of DX, legendary. And that overshadows any of the negative stuff from 2009, as far as I'm concerned. And then TJS had one more question. He said, who would you bet is the toughest wrestler? Dan Severn, Sheamus, Gunther, Jon Moxley, and Brock Lesnar come to mind for me. Well, you could naturally say any of the wrestlers that had legitimate MMA training. So obviously Shamrock, Dan Severn, Brock Lesnar, legit fighters that had that experience. And yeah, there's a lot of tough wrestlers for sure. I mean, guys that can just take a tremendous amount of physical punishment. I would put Kurt Angle on that list as well. I mean, tough as nails. And, not sure he would win a real fight or anything, but Mick Foley, if we're talking about just tough as far as how much punishment your body can take, Mick Foley would be up there. But if we're talking merely about who would win a real life fight, I mean, a lot of people always said Haku/Ming was one of the legitimate toughest guys in wrestling. Fit Finlay was a guy that had a reputation for being tough. Mr. Anderson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, will we ever see the New Day break up? I don't think so. If they were not breaking up by this point, I don't think they're going to. They had opportunities, and they made it clear themselves. They want to be like the one group that never breaks up. So they seem very much against it. I don't think it's going to happen. Bold prediction or not, I don't think the New Day is ever breaking up. I think they want to go down as the one group that always stayed together through thick and thin. So that's what I see happening with them. And on that note, I guess we'll finally wrap this up. We're about in an hour and a half. Thank you all so much. Great stream tonight. Thank you again to all the super chatters and everybody else in the chat room that participated tonight, left your thoughts and comments. Much love and appreciation to you all. Best thing you can do to help out, share a link to this video on social media. Tell a friend, anybody you know who watches wrestling. Have them check out this video and possibly subscribe to the channel. Every little bit helps. You tell one person, they can tell a friend, and word of mouth can go a long way. So please, tell your friends, have them check out the videos, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com in 2024. Looking forward to some fun streams with you guys. A lot coming up this week as 2024 kicks off. Stay tuned for all that. And here's a little story about Jake the Snake and Haku. Haku, I mean, that guy, the Samoans in general have to be among the toughest. Like, you know, the stories of them having those heads, like you don't want to bump heads with a Samoan because you're asking for trouble if you do that. Happy New Year. Happy 2024, everybody. Stay safe. Take care. I'll see you all next time. And remember, say yes to NoDQ.com, and we'll see you next time.